Marijuana is the third most recreational drug in America behind alcohol and tobacco, and marijuana is non-toxic and cannot cause death by overdose. The National Organization of the Reform of Marijuana Laws, quote unquote. I started experimenting with marijuana at the age of 11 or 12 and began to actually smoke marijuana on a regular basis by the age of 15. I stopped using marijuana February 4th of 2008. So I used marijuana for more than 30 years. Medically, marijuana has helped to maintain several different diseases: epilepsy, seizures, AIDS patients, muscle spasms caused by muscular dystrophy, and Crohn's disease. That's procon.org 2014, quote unquote. Today, we are going to get a better understanding of marijuana versus alcohol, the pros and cons of marijuana, medical marijuana, and finally, recreational marijuana use, and why legalizing it is far overdue. Excessive marijuana consumption is the third leading cause of preventable deaths every year behind tobacco and poor eating and exercise habits. Haven 2012, quote unquote. After California passed its medical marijuana bill in 1997, the FDA did a study completed in 2005 and found that the total amount of death directly attributed to marijuana was zero. That's Haven 2012, quote unquote. Alcohol is the most toxic drug, and using just 10 times what one would use to get the desired effect could lead to death. Marijuana is one of, if not the least toxic drug, requiring 1,000 times the dose one would use to get the desired effect to lead to death. This thousands of times is actually theoretical, since there has never been a case of an individual dying from marijuana overdose. The Science Research Society, American scientists, quote unquote. Now that I've opened up your thought process, let me share some of the pros and cons of marijuana use. A pro: the evidence is overwhelming that marijuana can relieve certain types of pains, nausea, vomits, and other symptoms caused by such illnesses as multiple sclerosis, cancer, and AIDS. That's Elder 2004. Here's a con: I would caution against the assumption due to the lack of consistent, repeatable scientific data available to prove marijuana's medical benefits. That comes from First 2003, quote unquote. Here's a pro: although cannabis has been smoked widely in the Western countries for more than 4 decades, there have been no reported cases of lung cancer or emphysema. That's a pro. That's from Gibbs Grinspoon 2006, quote unquote. Here's a con: cannabis smoke is likely to weaken the immune system. That's from the British Lung Foundation, done in 2002, quote unquote. Unlike for nicotine, here's a pro: unlike for nicotine, alcohol, and hard drugs, there is no clear definite withdrawal syndrome, the hallmark of true addiction when use is stopped. That comes from Blakemore and Iverson 2001. Here's a con: craving for marijuana decreases appetite, sleep difficulty, and weight loss reliability change across the smoking and abstinent phase. Aggression, anger, irritability, restlessness, and strange dreams increase significantly during one absent phase, but not the other. That's from Butney 2001, quote unquote. As you can see, there are many pros and cons to marijuana use. Now, let me share with you the importance of medical marijuana. There are 500 chemical compounds in marijuana, which is called the entourage effect. So you can You can't just take one chemical out of marijuana and make medicine. You have to use the whole plant. There has been tests done to prove that cannabis has helped children that suffer from seizures. One study was done on a 10-year-old girl that suffered 300 seizures a month. And after her mother medically obtained marijuana, her seizures were reduced greatly to only 2 seizures a month. Today, doctors prescribe medical marijuana as a treatment for issues such as sleeping disorder, aches and pains, eating conditions related to other medical treatments like chemotherapy. That's from the National Institution on Drug Abuse. That was done this year, 2015, quote unquote. Now that I have shared with you the importance of medical marijuana, let me finalize your thought process with recreational marijuana. Studies have repeatedly shown that alcohol, unlike marijuana, contributes to the likelihood of aggressive and violent behavior. An article published in the Journal of Addictive Behavior reported that alcohol is clearly the drug most evident to support the direct intoxication violence relationship, whereas cannabis reduces the likelihood of violence during intoxication. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, reports that more than 37,000 annual U.S. deaths, including more than 1,400 in Colorado, are attributed to alcohol use alone. On the other hand, the CDC does not have a category for the death caused by the use of marijuana. Despite the myths we've heard throughout our lives about marijuana killing brain cells, it turns out that the growing number of studies seem to indicate that marijuana actually has neuroprotective properties. This means that it works to protect brain cells from harm. For example, one study found that teens who use marijuana as well as alcohol suffer significantly less damage to the white cell matters in their brain. Of course, what is beyond question is that alcohol damages brain cells. Today, I spoke to you on marijuana versus alcohol. I've given you the pros and cons of marijuana. I have pointed out the importance of medical marijuana and finally, the unharmful use of recreational marijuana use. Marijuana is far less dangerous than alcohol or tobacco. Around 50,000 people die each year from alcohol poisoning. Similar, more than 400,000 deaths each year are attributed to tobacco smoking. By comparison, marijuana is non toxic and cannot cause death by overdose. The first day of legal recreational marijuana sales in Breckenridge, Colorado, at the Breckenridge Cannabis Club netted over $47,000 in just one state, was which was 30 times more money made than on the sale of medical marijuana. Just think what that would do for our country's economy.